The top 5 British Prime Ministers. Number 5. Tony Blair. Tony Blair was Prime Minister from 2nd of May 1997 to 27th of June 2007. Despite the highly unpopular war in Iraq, and the cash for peerages scandal, Tony Blair will go down in history as one of the great British Prime Ministers. His tenure included huge successes including the devolution of government to Scotland, Wales and eventually Northern Ireland, the popular House of Lords reform, the introduction of the minimum wage, the Civil Partnership Act of 2004 which allowed same-sex couples the same rights as heterosexual married couples. His most notable achievement from this was that of the St Andrews Agreement of 2006, which set out a timetable for a new devolved government in Northern Ireland. The situation in Ireland had plagued prime ministers since the turn of the 20th century, and the Belfast Agreement of 1998, followed by the St Andrews Agreement, marked a turning point in the politics of Northern Ireland. Tony Blair resigned on the 27th of June 2007, angering many over his failure to serve a full term, despite promising to do so. Number 4. William Pitt. William Pitt, the Younger, served as Prime Minister on a number of occasions during the late 18th and early 19th centuries. He was first Prime Minister in 1783, and finally on 23 January 1806 when he died. At the age of 24, he was the first Prime Minister publicly opposed to the slave trade, and acknowledged the problems associated with the colonies. William Pitt was disgusted that Louis XVI of France had been executed, and went to war with the post-revolutionary France in 1793. Possibly the most memorable event during William Pitt's tenure is the Act of Union 1800. This merged the Kingdom of Ireland and the Kingdom of Great Britain to form the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. Number 3. Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill served as Prime Minister 3 different times throughout the 1940s and 1950s, however, his most important term was his first, which lasted from 10th of May 1940 to 23th of May 1945. He is held in history as one of the greatest wartime leaders of all time, with his time in office lasting throughout the Second World War. Possibly his greatest attribute was his ability to make rousing and emotionally charged speeches to retain a high morale in the British people through the darkest days of World War II. He was quickly voted out after the end of the war, which was probably for the best, as he was largely seen as an incompetent peacetime leader. This is possibly most obvious through his own words, as Churchill entered office by declaring, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears and sweat." Number 2. Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher entered office on the 4th of May 1979, and left on 28th of November 1990. She was the first, and as of 2007 the only female Prime Minister in the UK. The first test during her premiership was that of the hunger strike during 1981. During it, a number of members of the IRA went on hunger strike in an attempt to regain their status as political prisoners. She became known for her hardline attitude, stating publicly that she didn't care if the hunger strikers were to die. This attitude was reinforced later that year during the Iranian embassy siege, the Falklands War of 1982, and her conduct of it cemented her position as a national hero. Thatcher's efforts and successes in decreasing the power of the trade unions, and her handling of the miners' strike of 1984 to 1985 also helped secure her already positive legacy. She is also remembered for her privatization of many government-owned industries. Her demise is often described as the greatest political downfall in British history. Despite still being incredibly popular among the British people, Thatcher was voted out by her own party and effectively ruined by her cabinet. She retired as an MP in 1992. However, she is still an active member of the House of Lords today. Number 1. Clement Richard Attlee. Clement Attlee was Prime Minister from 27 July 1945 to 26 of October 1951. He won a landslide victory over Winston Churchill and was the first Labour Prime Minister to have a majority in the House of Commons. During his term he allowed India to have independence, in a move largely seen as the end of the British Empire. Thus, he moved the UK into the modern era on the world stage, while also reducing British power and influence. This structural change to the empire allowed for the beginning of the Commonwealth. Undoubtedly his greatest achievement was the introduction of the National Health Service, which gave healthcare universally to the whole population. Notably, he was also very successful in the difficult task of moving from a wartime economy to a peacetime one. As the first rumblings of the Cold War began, Attlee secured the position of the UK as a loyal ally to the United States of America in an alliance that has lasted to this day. In 2004, Attlee was voted as the greatest British Prime Minister of the 20th century by Maury, an opinion which is also largely held by the British public. He lost power in the 1951 general election and died in 1967.